Hello. I apologize for my late entry.
All right, David Yassky, everyone.
Yeah.
We're glad that you could make it and could join us. So why don't you take 5 minutes now to tell us, to tell us about yourself and why you're running for Senate District 26.
Sure. And first of all, again, I apologize very much for being late. I was handing out flyers in front of the supermarket. I got in my head I want to get them all out, and anyway, I lost track of the time. So I'm running for Senate for, I guess, one big reason with a few parts. The big reason is we are in difficult shape, I think, as a state and as a city, as a country, but that's a bigger problem. And I know from my 30 years or so in and out of government that if I get to Albany, I can make a difference there and get us closer on the progressive issues that we all care about. I'm running, my argument, I guess, to people is based primarily on my record, and I guess they're mostly on my record in the city council. Although let me back up and just tell you very briefly the full background. I started in government when I got right out of college. I worked for the New York City Office of Management and Budget. Then went down to DC and worked for Chuck Schumer in the House when he was in the House. And we did the Brady Law and the Assault Weapons Ban, Violence Against Women Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Law, Federal Hate Crimes Law. It was an incredibly productive period. And the lesson I took away was that if you are creative and determined and persistent, you can actually use government to make change. So I came back to New York. I taught law school for a while, and then I ran for an open seat in the New York City Council. It was not a race anybody expected me to win. I ran against a longtime district leader who had the support of all of the elected officials in the area and outside the area. I actually kind of sued the Brooklyn Democratic Party to loosen up their ballot access rules so that I could run. But I won. And then over the next 8 years, I think I made a mark on issues like affordable housing and guns and environment. And specifically, when I did the first inclusionary zoning rule in the city, meaning when in Greenport, Williamsburg, when we rezoned that area, developers had to include affordable housing. That had never been done before in the city, and it was 20%, which now seems like not enough, and it is not enough. But the Bloomberg administration was against it. The Speaker of the Council was against it. It was a real accomplishment, and now, after Bill de Blasio's mayoralty, that's kind of the standard practice. Is to have zoning require affordability when there's new development. I've joined with Tish James and Annabelle Palma to push back the 421A law. At that time, 421A was just a tax break that was as of right for developers. There wasn't even an affordability requirement. And we said, wait a second, if this is going to be a tax break, it's got to have affordable with it. Again, the Speaker was against it, the administration was against it, but we succeeded in reducing that to half the city. I mean, it was a compromise, but I thought it was, at the time, it was a real achievement. Now, of course, people have gone further. So I'm running with that record, saying to folks like you that if you do help me get to Albany, when I say that I'm going to do universal broadband, which you probably don't need an explanation for why that is so crucial now. when I say that I'm going to push to make New York City 100% renewable energy, these aren't just, kind of random promises. These are things I intend to do, and my record tells you I'll follow through. And, I never think that I'm necessarily going to get 100%, but I'm going to get a good chunk of it. My priorities, in addition to those two, include special ed, or really focused on reading education. I'm convinced that the city does an abysmal job of helping kids with language-based learning disorders to read, and that we could do a much better job, and that's something I will focus on. Continue my environmental work. In the council, I sued ExxonMobil and forced them to clean up the 37 million gallons of oil that they left in the Brooklyn soil. The Gowanus cleanup is, of course, already well underway, but I will bring the same energy and focus that I brought to Newtown Creek to the Gowanus. And on public safety, I believe that we have to, make sure that New Yorkers feel safe on the streets and in the subways. I think that, when we let public safety kind of get out, when we let crime get out of control in the 70s and 80s, it was not only terrible diminishment of people's quality of life, but it really undermined the entire credibility of the Democratic Party and the progressive cause. I don't think that's what's happening today, but I think we have to make sure it doesn't happen. And at the same time, we have to make sure that the policing reform that has started really goes somewhere. In the last 2.5 years I spent working for New York State, I developed the police reform program that the state put into place 2 roughly years ago, where localities had to design and programs to reduce the use of excessive force by their police departments and submit them to the state. But now the next step is to monitor what those localities are doing. I'm not sure that anybody is focused on that, and in the state Senate, I surely will. So that's why I'm running for the seat. I ask for your support and your help to get there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you once again, Mr. Yassky. Same question protocol as a few minutes ago. Either use the Zoom raise hands or wave your hand in the air, and I will likely see you. I do see Matt Nisenoff's hand up, so he will get the first question.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today and for speaking to us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'd like to understand what your view of the status of the Brooklyn Democratic Party is.
Well, I was going to give the glib answer and say I don't think a lot about it. I don't think that the organized Brooklyn Democratic Party is of much, use, honestly. I'm not sure whether it. I'm still not sure whether a county Democratic Party can ever be of much use. I don't think we've seen one, at least in my active lifetime here, starting with Clarence Norman, then Vito Lopez, Frank Seddio, and now Rodney Bichat. I just don't think it's much of a factor in in policy, which is what I care about. And on the one hand, that's kind of a shame, but anyway, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. I don't like the way that we select judges. I think it creates this opportunity that the Brooklyn Party, and I think most of the county, certainly the other counties in New York City, I don't know much about it outside, kind of take advantage of to make judges almost like patronage jobs, which is kind of awful and shouldn't be that way. I've had many emails in the last several days from people who are like, who should I vote for judicial delegate? And what I really want to say is, that you shouldn't even participate in that process because it's a stupid way to pick judges. But then if I don't do that, I say, well, here are the judicial delegates that I think will do a better job than the alternative slate, and that's the the reform slate in my area. But the truth is, I know that that they're not going to be a dominant amount of votes anyway. So I feel kind of abashed about telling people that it's important. But anyway, we shouldn't, that shouldn't be the way we pick judges. But I'm not sure if I really answered your question. The status of the Brooklyn Democratic Party is, I don't think it's really a political party that has an agenda and a set of ideology and is pushing that, and it's having an impact on policy. I think it's largely about, electing judges, and that's unfortunate.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Baruch, I saw your hand up next, if you still have it up.
I just put it up, David, because I'm not sure that this would be more of my own rhetoric rather than asking Mr. Yassky to respond. But let me just tell you my feelings about the selection of police candidates, basically. They come from the military. They're screened by psychologists to see that they're not too much of a thinking or thoughtful type of processing intellect, but they will more quickly respond to orders and fit into a similar thinking pattern of executing what they're told to do, more or less like robots. How would you go about, there are many other factors that are involved in it also across the globe, about the selection process and about the training, because over here we have across the states a very short term of training rather than having them actually go apprenticing on the job and evaluating by seasoned other policemen, basically.
Yeah.
How would you factor all of those issues in and change the model of the policing that we have over here, rather than executing and making sure people adhere to rules, rather than being able to be more thoughtful and be more open, basically?
Yep. Okay. That's a great question. Not just rhetoric. I think that's like a key question. So two things I'll focus on are training and then accountability. So there is a body called the Municipal Police Training Council that sets the curriculum for police training across the state. It has never been, the current membership are people from representatives of like the police unions. Then there's a police chief. There's a criminologist, an academic, but historically that person has been a very, again, kind of traditional-minded person, not a reformer. So a couple of things. One is I pushed for, and actually the legislature passed, an expansion of that body to add community representatives. I think the language is something like representative of the communities that are most affected by excessive use of force or something like that. But now we have to actually implement that. And that means it's the governor that makes the appointments. So in the legislature, I will push hard on the governor and use the oversight powers to push for reform-minded appointments to that body that will remake the training curriculum so that it is about de-escalation and alternatives to use of force. And I really think that that's real, that you can accomplish something. We're lucky to have in New York some of the smartest people when it comes to police training. The president of John Jay is Carol Mason, she was in the Justice Department under President Obama. She was on President Obama's task force on, I forget what it was called, but it was basically on reforming policing practices. She has brilliant ideas about how to redo curriculum. David Kennedy, also at John Jay. So, we have minds here that we can take advantage of. So that's the training part. I don't think most people know about this body, even the Municipal Police Training Council. It's just not something that's been ever been kind of brought to light. And as a result, it's just been it's business as usual policing folks that have dominated it. Then the second part of that is accountability. So once people, and just as an aside, I'm not sure I love the apprenticeship model in this particular instance. I'm generally a big fan of apprenticeships. When I ran Pace Law School, we introduced a whole apprenticeship program where our students would go and essentially shadow an actual lawyer and learn from that person. But here, since we have to change the way policing is done, I don't love the idea of having a rookie, be trained by and kind of evaluated by a 15-year veteran. I read some of the kind of deeper reporting about what went on, with George Floyd, and the guy that sat on his neck was a veteran, but there were two other police officers there at the time, who were rookies, and one of them, it was Derek Chauvin, was the guy that had his knee on George Floyd's neck. One of those rookies had they have an apprenticeship type system there, and Chauvin had been that guy's, trainer. And so, but to hear him tell it, Chauvin had told him, you have to be much more aggressive than he was inclined to be. So anyway, I have a little hesitation about the apprenticeship model, but accountability, we've made fitful efforts at this over the years. It has to be much easier to discipline police officers, and it can't be left up to the police department. We have a CCRB here in New York City. Outside the state, there's not even that level. Outside the city, rather, there's not even that level of accountability. But the CCRB has some investigative powers, but it should have complete, subpoena power, complete ability to interview the police officers right away. None of the thing that now where they can wait several days before they're interviewed. And they need to have the ability to prescribe discipline, not just make a recommendation to the police department, which then is typically ignored. So I'm for having a much stronger accountability mechanism for police officers.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. We'll take one more question. Jay Brown, I believe you have the final question tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yassky. Just similar question to that I had to the other candidate. Pedestrian and cyclist safety, street safety in that sense. There's been, Vision Zero, and there's been a lot of focus on legislative changes in Albany over the past few years, and a lot of those measures statistically have been shown to reduce speeds, and and they're good. And I don't know where we would be without some of those, but we're still seeing such a high number of serious accidents leading to fatalities or critical injuries, oftentimes of children. There's still a problem with excessive speeding. Obviously, we need street redesigns, and there's a bunch of different ways to come at this. But from the state level, legislatively, what would your priorities be, and what would you be looking to do to make our streets safer to walk and cycle?
So, first of all, I want to give credit where credit's due to Andrew, who has been really active on the speed cameras and the red light cameras. I think, those have been effective, and we need, as I'm sure, Andrew said as well, the city should have complete authority to deploy those, wherever needed. So, and that almost goes without saying. It's another one of the kind of Albany absurdities where the only reason, it's not even, if they really had an objection, they wouldn't let the city use them at all. But the only reason they limit it is so that the mayor has to go and beg for it, and they can, have leverage, which is ridiculous. So absolutely, we need to have full authority of those. I would like to also deploy the weight sensors that are just now, that have just now been put on the Brooklyn Queens Expressway to automatically ticket overweight trucks. I'd like to deploy those on regular city streets, for including in places like Red Hook that are now overrun by, tractor trailers, because that's where all the last mile delivery warehouses are now. Most of the trucks that travel in New York City are overweight. They exceed the permitted weight. We found that a couple of years ago when we put weight sensors on the BQE, and found that over, no exaggeration, 90% of the trucks that crossed the weight sensors were overweight. So we should put them on the city streets as well. I'm not yet getting to your pedestrian question, but let me first also do bikes, because I'm very passionate about bicycling and bike safety. When I was in the city council, I sponsored, and we got passed a bill that requires office buildings to allow bicycles into the building. People, most office buildings before that law did not even allow bikes into the building. So even if you rented office space, and you were perfectly fine bringing your bike into the office, the building itself would not allow it. Now they have to allow it, and that's really enabled bicycle commuting. That, at least that piece of it. And I think we've taken great strides with the bike lanes and the separated bike lanes, and they have made a real difference. What we're going to see in the next, I don't know, maybe just even this summer, but certainly within the next year or two, is a proliferation of e-bikes and motorized scooters that will make the bike lanes, all the safety gains we've gotten over the last few years, I think it will take those away. And we're going to have to make some very kind of real decisions about allocating street space. I've talked to several transportation. Yes, cyclists do need to obey the traffic laws. I've talked to several transportation experts about the idea of having motorized bicycles ride in the traffic lane rather than on the rather than in the bike lane. And I'm inclined to think that is the better idea. I've heard different opinions about it, and I don't want to kind of commit to a position without. I think I need to hear more, more discussion. I think in general we need to have a real discussion about it and debate about it. But I want to put that on the table because as a cyclist, I can tell you it's now commonplace for an e-bike to kind of whiz up behind you and pass you at the earliest opportunity, and that's okay as long as they don't knock you on the way. But I think those bike lanes are going to be so crowded that you're going to see cyclists saying, hey, I might as well just ride out in the street with the traffic like I used to. We also do need to your point about enforcement, e-bikes need to be licensed. And by that, I don't mean you need to get a driver's license. I mean the bicycle itself needs to have a license affixed to it so that the police can enforce. That's just the way that cars have license plates. It is definitely common to see, and again, it's really the delivery e-bikes, and it's not those folks have tough jobs. I don't want to pick on them, but they have to respect the law. It's very common, as you know, to see a delivery e-bike whizzing down the wrong way on a one-way street or on the sidewalk. I mean, it's not myth. That is common. And if the bicycle has a license plate, then a police officer can see it, ticket it, send that ticket to the appropriate place, like we do with the speed cameras. So I was always skeptical about the idea of licensing actual bicycles, because it just seems like so much bureaucracy that wouldn't be worth the gains wouldn't be worth the costs. But and I still would not do that with just regular human powered bicycles. But for e-bikes, I think we're at a point where we do need license plates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yassky. As I mentioned, we fell a little behind. We had meant to send out questionnaires to you and Senator Gennardis before this period, give you time to fill them out. We did not get those ready or done in time, so we felt it was better to just wait and do it afterwards. So either tonight or tomorrow, look to receive a questionnaire from us with some questions about standard stuff. Standard stuff, just your support on different issues, your feelings on different issues. And then we'll give you, we'll give you, I think we said a week to fill it out and return it. And then after that, our members will take a vote on whether we want to endorse in this race. And if we do, who we might want to. But thank you so much for coming by and answering our questions. We really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you. And I'll be prompt. And again, on that, I apologize for being late here. And thank you for, not just having this forum and giving me time, but just for kind of being engaged. We don't, I don't need to take your time with, but this last week has been just a horrendous week for people who care about, fairness and justice and policy. And the only way, it just reaffirms the only way we're going to have a fair, better country is by winning elections and not, and radical right people not winning them. So thank you for your engagement. Okay, I'll leave off so you can have your discussion. Thank you.